What's going on, guys? So today we are here with my good friend Jim Laird. Known him, God, since
long time.
long time. I can count. Known each other for a long time. Trained together, powerlifting. Learned from each other, obviously, in the decades we've been doing this. And now he has his own private studio facility here in Lexington, Kentucky, called Jim Laird.
GYM.
So today, we've been doing a lot of mobility stuff on the website, opening tissue up, working on thoracic extension, scapula stabilization, all that good stuff. But we're going to go a little different route today. And Jim, I've been working with him a little bit here recently, and he's kind of opened my eyes up to a few things. So I kind of consider him an expert in this field, so to speak. Which is applicable to general population, athletes. Obviously, everybody has their own variances on how they need to adjust things, obviously. So we're going to keep things fairly general on what we're doing today. But I'm going to let Jim take over from here because he can explain this a lot better than I can.
Thank you.
Clip it to your shirt.
Sure. So we're going to talk a little bit about extension, okay? And a lot of people with movement, they kind of freak out that one movement's bad, another movement's good. I used to be like that early on in my career. Movement is all about strategies, and your body has a strategy that it uses. And if you want to get more into that kind of stuff, you can look at the Postural Restoration Institute, and that's a really deep rabbit hole you can go down, really deep. But I was exposed to this concept from Bill Hartman and Mike Robertson when I went up to IFAST in 2008. I got in a car accident. I was having some back issues. And in powerlifting, I was doing geared powerlifting at the time, and I had stopped doing geared powerlifting and I'd taken the suit off and I was working on squatting. I was having some problems getting to depth. And they were like, well, man, you're so extended, which is this position. And when you're super extended, you can't access your entire hip. And so I was having problems with squat depth. So they taught me about circumferential expansion, which is being able to brace 360 with your pelvis in a nice neutral position so you can access your entire hip. Extension is not all bad. It's not evil. A lot of people will say it's evil. Athletes like Usain Bolt or gymnasts, Olympic lifters, they have to go into extension to do their sport. If you took away Usain Bolt's extension, or you took away, like Stuart McGill talks a lot about basketball players failing the active straight leg raise on the FMS, and they take their hamstring tightness away, and then they lose the ability to jump. Okay, so if you have someone whose career is running in a straight line as fast as possible, extension's great because it's that fight or flight, emergency response. I got to get the hell away from something. If you're trying to move in a way, especially if you're trying to build glutes and hamstrings and you're trying to have longevity in your training, this position in squatting and deadlifting with the hard arch is not necessarily going to be good for long-term knee health, hip health, all that sort of deal. Because you're just trying to basically move in a way that isn't the most efficient. So what we're going to do today is we're going to show a couple things that we do here at the gym to help teach people to get a more neutral pelvis. I get all sorts of people that come to me like, I can't squat deep. Do I need Olympic shoes? My knees bother me when I squat. And usually when we fix their pelvis, usually they can squat well, okay? It's just like you're here, and when I assess somebody for the first time and they squat, they usually do this. Right? And it's very hard for them to get down. So when you teach them to get that head in the chin in a packed position and be more neutral, they can access that full squat. All of a sudden they're like, wow. Now what we have to do is teach them how to brace so under load they don't revert to that emergency response where they're basically camping on their low back to get their stability. And you'll see this a lot with women when they unrack the bar. They'll be standing there with their knees hyperextended. I can't even do it. But they'll be hypermobile, and then their pelvis is anteriorly tilted. So one of the things you want to get them to do is unlock their knees, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring Alan over here. And Alan's just going to get on the floor, and we'll get him to stand up over here and come here. Circumferential expansion is, if he turns to the side, is basically actively blowing the ribs down. So the rib cage is here, the belly button is here. If your rib cage is here, you're not going to be able to create kind of like an egg. If it's turned sideways, it's not going to be as strong. We want to make an egg. So Alan is going to actively exhale. Oh, baby. He's going to exhale, he's going to blow his ribs down, he's going to hold that position, and it shouldn't be anything crazy. And then he's going to fill up with air without letting his ribs come up, and he's going to brace his sides. He's going to create pressure here, and it doesn't have to be huge. But what most people were taught, including what I was taught, is push the stomach out, which drives you into extension. So we're trying to create pressure in the sides, which will, these are the go muscles, this is the show, okay? So we want to create pressure in the sides. And how we can do that, the first way we teach people to do that is we get like Alan on the floor, like with his feet on the wall. And we can put a foam roller in between his knees if we want. But basically what we want Alan to do, just to figure out, like right now you can see his rib cage is flared up a little bit. So what we're going to try and do is get Alan to figure out how to get his rib cage in a neutral position. By exhaling, he's going to exhale. He's going to actually actively push his low back into the floor. Okay, and you can see that's a little bit of work for him. So right now he's in a fairly good neutral position. Then he's going to put his fists up in the air, and this isn't like a huge breath. He's just going to basically, he's going to blow his ribs down, and he's going to hold that, and then he's going to practice breathing into that. So he's going to breathe into that, and then he's going to hold, and he's going to brace there, and he's just going to take a few breaths in and out while keeping that tension, and then he's going to reset, and then he's going to actively exhale, push his low back into the floor. And then he's going to actively brace his sides and create pressure all the way around. So we start on the ground if we need to. There's little tricks we can do with people that we might not actually have to go to the ground, but we're trying to keep it as simple as possible. But that's a really simple drill that you can do. He can even do this holding a plate up in the air, okay? And he can exhale, blow his ribs down, and then practice breathing into that, okay? So it's, you exhale, you pick the bar up, you take your breath, you get set, you feel all of that, and you focus mainly on bracing those sides, and then you do your squat.
So when you're breathing, do you breathe? A lot of people will breathe through their chest.
Right.
Obviously.
When you want to take the breath everywhere, right?
So it's pretty evenly distributed.
It's evenly distributed. You want to drive air into the low back, into the sides. And this is, a lot of people they breathe with, which is a whole nother rabbit hole. They breathe with their neck and their traps and their lats a lot because they are, when you're extended all the time, like if you're walking around in extension, your diaphragm it turns into a postural muscle, not a breathing muscle. So then all of a sudden other things like your scalene. So if your neck is tight all the time, if you're, you're just tight up here all the time, a lot of it is because your rib cage is in a bad position and you can't breathe effectively. You're not breathing efficiently. You're breathing in more of a high threshold type pattern. So another thing we can do, really simple, that you can do between your squats and deadlifts is called the bubblegum fart. So go ahead and flip over, Mr. Kress. So all I'm gonna do, and this is really good, I'm gonna put this ball back here. And so he can move his hands back a little bit. Good. So go ahead and go into extension for me. Push into the ball. Does that feel good? Go into flexion. So there's the two extremes, push into the ball. Does that feel good? Okay, now go neutral. Okay, good. So there's more neutral. We actually want a little bit of flexion here so we can get him out of extension. But all he's going to do is take a breath in. He's going to exhale. And then he's just, you can see shaking there a little bit. He can just lift one hand just barely off the floor. And then he's going to breathe a couple times. And then he's going to lift the other hand off the floor, exhale, and breathe a couple times. And this is a way for him to learn how to take this. So what I'll do is have somebody do this exercise, and then I'll tell him, take those abs over to the squat, okay? It's called a bubblegum fart. It's a really good thing to do on your days off. It's a good thing to do between your squats and deadlifts so you can learn how to feel that trunk so you can hinge effectively and squat effectively. Another thing we can do, this is called a reaching squat. So you'll have people, you'll tell them to squat and they'll do this, okay? What we want to do is we want to pull them, we want to put them in flexion. So we actually want to flex the spine, and this is also another good way. If you get someone that goes into flexion and they have back pain, then you need to refer them out to a PT, which I'm not. But basically, Alan's going to take this plate, he's going to turn sideways. And this also teaches, one of the things I used to do wrong is I would tell people to sit back first, and they go into that arch. When you squat, you want to sit down, okay? You sit down. I was taught to sit back because I was wearing a squat suit. Big difference between squatting in a squat suit and squatting raw. Okay, so Alan's going to exhale. He's going to reach. He's going to get some serratus. So he's really going to reach. He's gonna tuck his pelvis, and then he's gonna sit right down, straight. And he's still a little extended there, so we wanna reach even more. There, and now he's gonna exhale, he's gonna find his abs, and he's gonna stand right back up. Good. Turn your toes straight ahead. Exhale, tuck your pelvis under you. There. And you see how hard this is for him? Because he's so used to being extended, we're trying to take him into flexion. Pull your belly button to your rib cage actively and really reach. Tuck your chin and sit down. Good, that's better. Take a couple breaths. Now come up. And you can see he's a little more like neutral now. And I want you to turn your toes straight ahead. And I want you to actually let your knees go forward. I actually want you to bend your knees. So really extend, tuck your belly button, and sit down. There you go. And just really reach, almost round a little bit. Yep, and hang out and breathe there a couple times, and then come up. So what'll happen is we have something, I'll actually have people do that holding onto a rope so they can squat like that. A lot of times it's easier for them to learn how to get a little posterior pelvic tilt. So by putting him in flexion, giving a little bit of a posterior pelvic tilt, when he goes back under the bar, it's gonna be easier for him to be like, okay, I'm here, I got pulled to here, and then he's able to go find middle a little easier. So those are 3 little tricks that you can do to help basically learn how to control your pelvis when you squat. And then, you know, maybe later on we could do a video about some of the things you can do after training to shut off extension, because if you're done training and you're here, it's gonna be harder for you to relax. There's gonna be anxiety issues. You're not gonna digest your food as well if you're stuck in that position where you're in this like hyper breathing kind of deal.
What about the movement you had me do where I'm on the floor, we're warming up?
Yeah, like this is really good for somebody who's in good shape like Alan. I'll just throw him into this, which is like, there's 2 versions of this.
I can actually touch my knee down.
Yeah, so Alan's gonna crunch up, and he's just gonna, I give this to a lot of powerlifters and bodybuilders that come to me, and I was like, do this every day. And go ahead and raise that leg. So he's basically in flexion. You see he's shaking a little bit. He's a lot better than he was, and he's just gonna go up and down. Another way to do this too is bend both your knees. Reach to the ceiling. Exhale. Crunch, like do a crunch.
Oh, both hands?
Yeah, go up. Hold that position, knees up in the air. Now just rock back and forth on your back, like a hollow. Yeah, that's it. Just rock more, rock. You can do that holding the plate, rock, really rock. He can do that holding the plate, right? And then I could tell him, turn to me when you do it. Drunk turtle, turn to me, bring your feet. Yeah, that's it, keep going. Keep your step, everything stiff. Yeah, so this is pulling him out of extension, and then follow me back. This is supposed to be a rest day for you, right? Good, just like that, just doing some of that before your training will help you get out of here to here so you can find neutral. And obviously, if like you're working up to a max on a squat and you go into extension on your max, that's fine. But if this is your main strategy for like every squat, it's just biomechanically is not gonna be good for you long term. Another great thing is backwards bear crawls. So, you know, you're bear crawling, you're reaching to the ceiling, and you're bear crawling backwards, that's gonna force a little bit of posterior pelvic tilt too. So that's another neat little tool that you can do. Little things that you can do in between your working sets or as a warm up to help you kind of learn how to control the middle.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, like that movement you saw me do just then, my elbow to my knee, a week ago, I was probably a good 8 inches from being able to touch my elbow to my knee. So I've been doing this every single day before my workouts, and now I can hold that position without, and I had to actually put a yoga block between so I had something to actually push into. And now I can actually, I've increased my range of motion by 6 to 8 inches. I'm getting a lot more neutral position in my pelvis. I actually did legs yesterday. Worked up to some crazy heavy weights. I felt great through the whole workout. I'm on fire right now as far as soreness. So,
and you're probably not walking around with a low back pump all the time.
Yeah.
So that's gonna shut off tone back here. You know, when I went up to IFAST, they're like, dude, you brush your low back with your teeth. And so what activating this helps shut this off. Another tip that really helped me from what Bill told me up there is when I had my back injury is when you're driving in your car, breathe in through your nose into your low back. That's gonna help keep this system on. When you have something that's tight, it means something else isn't necessarily doing its job. So with Alan, we don't want to fix him. We just want to manage it. So like just want to pull him out of extension enough so he can train without his knees hurting and all that kind of stuff. So you don't want to get stuck in one pattern. You want to provide enough variability without decreasing performance. So like if I'm working with a sprinter or a basketball player who's really extended, I'm not going to load them up in a back squat. I'm going to do a front squat, goblet squat instead. I'm going to do some bear crawls. I'm going to do things to pull them out of it just enough so that we don't drive them even further into extension.
It's just with this stuff, guys, you got to be consistent. You can't do this 1-2 times and then all of a sudden you're fixed and you go back to your bad habits. Right. So you need to take your time, be very consistent with just choose 1 or 2 of these things and do it, 4 or 5 days a week, if not every day. Get into good patterns, and that will create good habits, which will carry over into your training, which obviously will help prevent hip issues, knee issues, all that kind of jazz we're trying to avoid at all costs. Now, obviously, there's nothing that's going to fix everything. Sometimes you just need to get a proper diagnosis.
Well, sometimes it's a dosage issue. Sometimes you're just doing too much.
Yeah. Oh, and that's a lot of things, obviously, we talked about in our seminar is you got to back off sometimes. You can't be training 6-7 days a week all the time. Your body's never turning off. I mean, you have to realize that recovery, if you're training hard, recovery has to be just as hard. I mean, you got to balance the two out. You can't always just drive yourself into the ground because things will shut down, and then you're always fighting uphill to make progress. And we'll do some videos on that with your nervous system, obviously, and trying to balance out the sympathetic and parasympathetic so you have a good autonomic balance with everything, which will carry over into training, into nutrition, and all that stuff. So I hope you guys got a good takeaway from this. We'll try to shoot some more videos. And again, this is not just for athletes, this is for everybody. General pop, athletes, bodybuilders, whatever. And the problem with the industry now is they're trying to segment everybody into these separate things and boxes, so to speak, and kind of think bodybuilders just need to do this, powerlifters just need to do this, and general pop just needs to do this, when they all can get something or a lot from this takeaway, which will improve their individual sport or just living a better, healthier life.
Sure. If I could add something before we take off, I did help Dr. Quinn Heniock with a seminar he was doing in Louisville a couple weeks ago, and he talked about like if you're squatting and you have pain, like say you're squatting and you're pain-free until like 275, and then you go to 315 and you have pain, stay at 275 and just squat there. Like sometimes certain pain responses won't show up into a certain load. There's nothing wrong with working up to a weight that you can do pain-free and staying there for a while. So dosage is a big part of it too.
Yeah, I mean, don't train your ego. I mean, if something's starting to hurt at a certain weight, something mechanically is being thrown off at that point. You can't stabilize with that load, so just pushing that load up is going to make the situation worse. So listen to the body, auto-regulate as much as possible, and just rest and recover. We're going to emphasize that a lot, over the course of this year and everything that we start putting on here, because everybody wants to train their asses off and pound themselves on the ground, but nobody's truly focusing on recovering and balancing things out. So I hope you guys got a good takeaway from this. We'll shoot another one soon.